those are pretty well stuffed.
Okay.
No, I think that one looks like nice and plump.
That's true.
These ones are definitely a bit understuffed. I think I'm getting there. I can't remember where. I think it was a YouTube video that said there was like a certain number of like plates you're supposed to have, and I don't know how many. And I kind of want to get there.
I don't know either.
How many plates I'm supposed to have?
So what made you think of dumplings for this?
I really like the act of folding. It takes so long, and it's a very it's a very comforting food. And like this is a big comfort meal.
Yeah.
Even though this isn't exactly my comfort meal, like wontons would be a comfort meal, but this like the act is very soothing.
Yeah.
And it just sits, and you just like I would sit with like my mom and my sister, and just fold, and it was nice.
Yeah. It's like a communal time. And it's kind of meditative because you're doing the same thing over and over.
It is.
I remember for New Year's, you would usually go over to your grandparents for wontons.
Yeah, I still do.
Do you wrap them together, or is it just you just like eat them together?
We just eat them together. My grandma loves to. She cooks very large meals, and it takes her like days of prep. So I wouldn't say she likes it, but she does it a lot for her family. So New Year's wonton is like a really nice tradition, and I'll go even if I'm hungover.
It's New Year's after all. New Year's wontons.
It's New Year's, yeah. I think maybe first year of uni, it was still when Facebook was still like a thing. Facebook groups, and I think I told you about like the Subtlation Treats like Facebook chat.
Yes.
Facebook group, and I remember going on there and seeing everyone post about like cut up fruit, and that's kind of the first time I kind of had exposure to all of like the classic Asian American childhood experience of people like sharing those experiences, and I thought that was really funny because I've kind of heard bits and pieces out there, but that was the first time I heard a lot of it, had a lot of exposure to it.
Yes.
So I thought that was really cool, like the cut up fruit being like a language. I'm like, yeah, my grandparents do always do that. My mom does cut my fruit. My grandma peels grapes for like her grandkids.
Yes.
And I don't think I realized like the significance of that. I kind of always noticed it, but I didn't really like attach that significance to it till I realized that was an experience for everyone.
Everyone, yeah.
Did you have that? Like cut up fruit kind of?
Actually, my strongest memory of that is a childhood friend of mine. I used to go over to her house a lot. She's Persian, and her mom, without fail, every time we came over at some point, would like knock on the door of my friend's bedroom and bring us a plate of cut fruit. So my strongest memory, like my immediate thought when thinking about that is actually about that friend. But my mom definitely did that a lot as well. She still does that now. Like she'll tell you to come down because she cut fruit on the table or something like that.
It's nice. I don't think I always appreciated it. Like what my grandma was trying to communicate when she did that, or maybe not like trying to communicate, but like the gesture.
The gesture itself.
Yeah. Like you don't really recognize that as a kid.
Yeah, because as a kid it's just like, okay, my mom wants me to eat this fruit.
Okay, there's fruit.
There's fruit and I must eat it.
Dessert is always cut up fruit.
Yes. But then growing older, you realize that's like an expression of care. That's another way of them showing care. Did you ever get cut up fruit as an apology?
I didn't, no.
Me
Did
neither.
you? Okay. I have heard of that happening.
Yes, I've also heard of that happening. Well, my parents just like don't really apologize. So.
That too.
Just so you know.
The emotional communication for that generation is
a bit lacking,
it's a bit
some
lacking.
may say. I think that's one thing I have about the almost like normalization of cut up fruit as an apology. On one hand, I think it's really unifying for us as a community, especially for us, like children of immigrants, because even if, like, for example, you and I, we didn't actually receive that growing up, but we understand what that like signifies and reminds us of our parents or grandparents. But one thing I started seeing was almost like a glorification of that. I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, it is very sweet and could make me cry if I think about it. You know, like that's the way my parents show care and love and affection for me. But on the other hand, I'm like, am I supposed to be satisfied with this?
Like, should this be the norm?
Yeah, is
like
this the norm? Like, I understand the complexities of my parents, like, culturally, right? But at the same time, like, is it only supposed to bring me joy? Like, it brings me mixed feelings. And
I see that a lot too, because on one hand you know that that's a sign of affection, but also you're not wrong for wanting just an outright display of it. Like, you shouldn't have to decode their message.
Yeah.
It can hurt to not have your parents show you affection in a way that you can understand except the cut of fruit that you understand as a message when you're like in your mid-20s.
No, that's such a great way to put it. Because I think when I needed it the most was when I was a kid, when I was too young to understand all the hidden meanings behind a certain action. And that's when you want it the most as a kid. Like, I did want more explicit affection from my parents. I'm spilling filling all over the table.
Oh, so am I. It's in my water bowl, because like normally I get like the spoon and I like do this
Oh, you
because
do
I
like
don't
that.
like having. Yeah, I don't know why, but I don't use my fingers because the fingers are easier because we don't want filling the water.
I feel like you've been probably one of the OGs since before this project was really established. Like, I'd already been talking to you about it a lot and had asked you a few times if it would be something you'd be interested in. And before, you had communicated like some hesitance around participating.
I think a lot of it was just not feeling very, because I would say that I'm very westernized. I think I've been told a lot that I'm pretty like whitewashed, and I think like Asian friends told me that, white friends told me that. It feels very different when two different sides tell you that. It's very funny, but sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm completely like representative of this, like that of the target audience for this exactly. So it feels a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like you're not Asian enough.
Yeah. What do you think would constitute as like an appropriate representative to be a part of the project?
I don't think there really is. There really isn't, because there's no requirement. Because everyone's second gen, everyone's a different place with accepting their cultural identities and like different ways that they express it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different for everyone. But for me, it's something that I've always felt pretty uncomfortable with. So for me, that was a very big, little mini identity crisis.
Yes. You said you also got that, like, not being Asian enough or being like whitewashed. You got them also from like white friends. Do you remember what some of those experiences were like? Like, in what context did they say that? And like, what was going on there? Anything in particular do you remember?
It was definitely in childhood, so I'm wondering if, I don't have any specific memories, I just remember hearing it from like both sides, and it might have been in a group setting where like it was more people like agreeing, or people, I can't remember exactly how it came up, or maybe even I said it. Like, I remember saying that a lot as a kid, so it might have just been something that I said. But it definitely feels kind of, it disconnects you a little bit, especially because I don't speak Chinese. I have a lot of like most of my life is pretty westernized. I don't have too many cultural ties. So it feels weird to like have that told to you and then saying it myself.
When do you think you started to see it yourself, that you're westernized or that you're whitewashed? Like, when did it become something that you would voluntarily say?
I think as a kid, some of we had a lot of the same friends growing up. I feel like I got told that by some of our friends. When they would come over to my house and stuff, I think maybe it was just a little different. My parents are a little different. Never in a bad way. I think it was more almost in a, they said it as a compliment, which made me take it as a compliment, which now that I think about it, is really weird for me.
Yes. Did you ever get that from me, by the way?
No.
This is a safe space.
No.
Okay. I didn't think I would, but like, I'm just saying.
I'm not talking about anyone in specific, but I definitely like heard it a lot and said it a lot, so I'm not really thinking of anyone specific.
Yeah.
I met someone for lunch, and I'm trying to think of the specific microaggressions now because Oh, she didn't like the sound of other people of other languages. She thought that oh, how did she phrase it? Yeah, she didn't like the sound of other language. Oh, because we were talking about we had got lunch to talk about a reality show, and we were talking about reality shows, but then she made it clear that she did not like reality shows, and then we started talking about K-dramas, because my friend was trying to get me to watch a certain K-drama, and then she interjected for her part of the conversation saying that, oh, she doesn't like to watch K-dramas because she doesn't like the sound of other languages. And I thought that was odd at the time, but I put it off. But then later in the conversation, she actually said that she watches, I forget, was it like Russian or Ukrainian? I think it was a Slavic language, but she watches like she listens to like podcasts and like other shows that have those languages, white European languages. And then later we were talking about dating history, and we were all like sharing little gossipy tidbits about each other's dating lives. And she had mentioned that her boyfriend was fit a certain type, how he was white, tall, Nordic, blonde. Wow, I have a type, but like, oh, my boyfriend in 6th grade, though, he was very Hispanic, and she made that she emphasized his race a lot, but then mentioned her type as being tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. That's her type, but then like specifically mentioned, oh, like almost to distract from the fact that she said that was her type, and she was like, oh, but my boyfriend in like 6th grade, Hispanic. And it was a very odd segue. And at that time I didn't put that together at all. And then later my friend had come up to me and said, hey, that really wasn't okay. I'm so sorry that you had to listen to that, and that was really awful. I don't want to speak to this person again, and you definitely don't have to. And that was the point where I realized, oh, like all those little things that she said that I thought were weird at the time, but I kind of brushed off because this is a person I've never met before. I have no idea. I'm just meeting this person for the first time, but then she was saying all these things that felt a little weird, a little uncomfortable. They felt off. I couldn't really place it, and it was till someone else saying that, oh, hey, that was not cool. And this person is actually white too, so like, yeah, it was weird that I wasn't willing to pick it up and someone else was. Yeah.
Why do you think? Yeah, because you clearly detected something in it. Like some bells were going off in your head. But why do you think you didn't come to the same conclusion as your friend? Like, do you think at that time, if your friend had said you were prepared to potentially have lunch with this acquaintance again, or have to interact with this person again?
I think I would have put it together eventually. Yeah. I think it's just maybe it's so normalized to like kind of ignore little microaggressions or let them slide a little bit that it's the bar is high, the reaction bar is higher. Like it goes, the level of detection, it's like if it falls under a certain bar, it goes like undetected almost. Like I think if I were maybe, if someone said, hey, let's go grab lunch with this person again, I would feel uncomfortable, but I think I would still go. Like, I really did not detect it until someone said something. Which is really, it's a weird thing to think about, because you would think that I would remember, I would realize, but absolutely did not come across for me. Like, just the microaggressions, but it did feel weird for me.
Yes. Yeah. You feel it, but then maybe it's not super apparent or verbalized yet.
Yeah.
Do you think anything has changed since that interaction?
No, I think I've always been pretty... I remember working in, like, customer service in high school. I think we would get a lot of microaggressions that would feel weird, and I think maybe was detected by other people, but at the time it was kind of like, this is part of the job. This is just interacting with people. This is customer service. So I think even at a very early age, I think you're taught to like kind of ignore or like at least become used to microaggressions, so you're so like
becomes normal. Becomes normal. That makes me think about, that's something I wanted to bring up with you, but I forgot. Do you remember how because we worked together in the same retail store together for a while. Do you remember how people used to confuse the two of us all the time? All the time, and they would always ask you to translate when a customer did not speak English. They did? They did. I remember someone asking over walking multiple times, and you really did not like doing it. But you did sometimes, but sometimes you said no. I do not remember that, straight up. don't.
Because you felt really uncomfortable about it. Like, you did not like it. And I don't think we ever talked about it too much. I just remember you saying that you didn't like it.
Wow, I didn't know. I straight up did not remember that at all.
Oh, wow. I remember getting a lot of microaggressions at that job specifically, and over walkie, I remember someone overhearing an interaction being like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, it's weird, but I'm fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm fine.
Wow. Okay.
So I think a lot of things, like, even at that age, I was ignoring microaggressions. Like, it was just slipping under the radar. I was like, that was weird. But I just, like...
Yeah, I think for me, that specific period of time, that was like 2 years, I think, for us. I don't remember a lot of that experience because my first job ever, like 15, 16, extremely stressful, very traumatic, really weird stories I have from that experience.
Yeah.
And clearly I've blocked out a lot of it because I do not remember being asked to translate all the time. It's really strange.
It is. It kind of makes sense, though. Like, that's something that you would block out. That's all. I would block it out. I've probably blocked out a lot of that experience, too, just because there's so many weird interactions and... Yeah.
I wonder what it was that I didn't like about it. Like, I wish I did remember so I could analyze that in myself. But I brought up specifically, that people used to confuse us because my younger sibling got their prom dress recently. And so, like, looking through the photos, like, talking to my mom about it, and there's a specific dress that they tried on that was, like, beautiful, like, dark blue color. I was like, oh my god, like, I wish I had a dress in that color, or... Yeah, just there were more options. And then my mom was like, well, why didn't you? Like, the dress that you chose came in a blue as well. But then you said you didn't want that blue because Katie already had a blue dress.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I do remember that. I was like, I think it's just because, like, I don't think Katie would have minded, but, like, we're a smaller group. Like, it's just the four of us. So I was like, it just makes sense for us to have different colored dresses. And then I sat for a while and I was like, actually... I think it was because the two of us got confused as each other a lot in high school. And so I was like, I am not going to wear the same dress. Because we are different people.
Yeah. That happened so much at that job. You're so right. I didn't realize that. Wow.
It happened all the time. And I remember feeling uncomfortable, but I didn't like it. But the most messed up part of it was I somehow thought it was my fault. Or, like, not responsible or something, but something similar to that. Like, I used to feel embarrassed or something, which is kind of messed up.
That is really messed up. It's really...
Because why? In
like,
what scenario would it be my fault?
No, there's no scenario. And also, they would also make... They would try to make it like, oh yeah, because you guys have a similar haircut. You guys, like... I think we had the same cardigan, but in different colors.
Oh, yeah, I think we did.
At one point, and... they would always make, like, be like, oh yeah, you guys have the same hair color, or, like, same haircut.
And we both wear glasses.
We both wear glasses. I'm like, wow, you're describing so many people.
So many other people.
I don't remember what my reaction was to that when people said that, but I think I got that a lot, like, when my sister and I worked at the same place. We also got that a lot, too. And I was like, well, we're sisters.
The siblings.
But also, there were also other people with glasses and dark hair that also worked there that I also got mistaken for. So. No.
I think I didn't think much of it initially, but then it kept happening. Like, it was such a constant the time that we worked there that I started to feel, I don't know actually what to call it, but just embarrassed or something. Or, like, I would, whenever they made the mistake, I was like, oh my God. Not again. And also, like, I started to not correct them, I think. Or I was just like, whatever, I'll just do it. It's fine.
That really sucks.
It's funny. I think, it makes me think about, I must be some sort of people-pleasiness coming in, because I didn't want the other person to feel embarrassed. Isn't that so silly?
No, that's totally it.
So I would shoulder the embarrassment for them, and I wouldn't say anything, and I would go along with it.
Yeah.
That's because I was concerned about their feelings, even though they were the people that were in the wrong.
Yeah. That makes so much sense.
I just had to figure that out.
That's awful. And these are full-grown adults that are doing this.
Yeah,
we were 15, 16. They were adults.
They were full-blown adults.
Full-blown adults. Also, you all look great in blue.
But going back to the interaction you had at lunch with that person. It makes me really happy to know that you were surrounded by someone like your friend that came up to you and was like, we're not doing that anymore. Like, called it for what it was and was like, we're not doing that anymore. I think that's so important to have that vocalized in front of you, to have someone else be able to detect it and say it.
It was really, yeah, you're right, that was really nice. I really appreciated the time. I actually don't think I appreciated it enough. I think I was almost confused as why she was talking to me. I'm like, when she was saying all these things to me, I was almost like, oh, I didn't realize, like, I was almost in shock. Like, I was processing, like, rethinking about reliving that interaction, thinking about what exactly happened. And yeah, I don't think I appreciated it enough, like, that interaction, because I really do value it, and it makes me think more critically about interactions I had in the past, or even interactions I have daily. Because it matters. It sits in your brain for a while.
It does.
And like it's a burden. It's like a burden that you carry a lot.
Yeah.
And you like even like we worked those retail jobs so long ago, but we're still thinking about it actively. Actively, it's there.
It's in there.
Reliving it every day. I remember specific ones, like people would ask like, oh, what language, like they would assume that I wouldn't speak English. Or they would ask me where I'm from. And they would be annoyed when I said Canada, or like, oh, I was born in, they're like, I was born in New West, and they're like, oh, but where are you from? It's the second from that really does it. Second from.
Yes.
Where are you from though? It's like, my parents were born here too. Keep going. Keep going. Please.
What else do you want to ask?
Ask again. Ask one more time. Because why does it matter to you? Like, what in this small interaction where you're meeting me for the first time, what information is this giving to you that is of value?
Exactly. What value does this add to this conversation that you must know where I am from?
I am helping you find a size in a t-shirt. Do you need to know this about
Must
me?
you know?
Must you know? Like, how is this relevant? And it's not something I'm guarding. It's just that's the first thing that they think of when they're interacting when they're interacting with me. And that's so weird.
Yeah,
it's just weird. But part of the programming in my brain is like, well, it's micro. It's not. It's harmless. It's meaningless. Like, I still that's still in my brain. Like, that's still there. It's like, let it go. They didn't mean anything by it. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's stuff like that makes it more harmful because you're perpetuating it. And
yeah, absolutely. I used to think that too. I had a hard time with it, so I would just be angry by myself about that experience I had, but I wouldn't share with anybody because I was like, well, it's small and it's so easy to explain it away as something innocent. So I didn't want to tell somebody because what if they invalidate or diminish that experience that I had? So I used to do that a lot. In a university class, they had us do the, I don't know what it's called specifically, but like the privilege exercise, where you stand together as a class at the back of the room, the professor reads out a example of oppression or privilege, you take 2 steps forward or 1 step back.
Oh my God, that sounds awful. No,
I did it twice in university. Did a tutorial and I also did it as like a big lecture class.
What? That sounds... Nope.
So we did that.
That's awful.
It was called like the backpack of privilege or something.
Okay.
So we did that. It finishes, we walk back to our seats, and there are these 2 people in front of me, and I overhear them talking to each other, and they're like, I just don't understand why we have to like do stuff like that. Like, all it does is make me feel bad.
That's so funny.
I'm not saying I have criticism of the exercise for sure, but not the same criticisms that they have. And that's the thing. I've my whole life I've been so concerned about other people feeling bad or being embarrassed that they called me by the wrong name, or hurting their feelings and that they feel uncomfortable,
or like correcting them because they said something wrong. If I correct them, that's embarrassing to them.
Yes. And so I think eventually I was realizing that it's not my fault, it's theirs.
Yeah, it really isn't. And it's not your burden to bear. They screwed up. And you don't have to protect them.
No.
Because why?
Yes.
And they're not thinking about it as much as we would.
Oh, no.
No one ever does.
No one ever does. It's always us left, like several years later, and I'm still thinking about it. Or it comes out of nowhere, I'm thinking about it.
We grew up in a school system that had a pretty large, like, Asian demographic. When did it? And I thought that was normal, but I think when did it kind of click for you that wasn't like a normal, like? I remember eating snacks from T&T, like Pocky and other things, and realizing that wasn't the same playground experience that everyone had, that everyone didn't grow up with these snacks because they had a large Asian demographic. How do you think that, like, when did that click for you that wasn't like a normal experience or maybe common?
That's a good question. That makes me think of how, I love going on tangents, but that makes me think of how that one time you were at a friend's like birthday thing, and so you brought snacks over, and one of them was shrimp chips.
Yeah.
And I asked you, like, were your snacks a hit? And you were like, yeah, but like, turns out some people didn't have exposure with shrimp chips. And I was like, what? How could you not?
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a specific moment that it clicked for me that was a different experience growing up. I think maybe it clicked when I was reading about other people's experiences and them talking about what it was like being one of the few racialized kids growing up and how that affected them. And then I remember thinking, I wasn't the only racialized kid growing up, though. There were a lot of Asian kids for us when we were growing up. To realize that even if you're surrounded by other racialized kids, you're still gonna experience discrimination, racism, albeit in different ways. And maybe you could argue that it's not as hard compared to people that were like one of the few racialized kids growing up. But your experiences overlap, and there are a lot of parallels and similarities still. It took me a little bit to get there. I remember thinking, like, not that I had it easy, but I had it easier because at least I had people that looked like me in my classroom growing up.
Yeah, you weren't the only one.
I wasn't the only one.
And then you also get a different form where you get that internalized racism coming up from people that also look like you but are also affected by the same systemic oppression that affects everyone. But you get it coming out in different ways from people that look like you, and they're also feeling the same things, but they're also getting like weird pressures that it's a different experience than if you were the only one.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that was a big part of my learning growing up, is that just because someone looks like me doesn't mean they're my friend. It doesn't mean that they're not going to disappoint me. Like, they're not going to let our collective community down. I think that was something I had to grapple with for a little bit, that there's no guaranteed safety just because that person looks like me, and that we experience the same exclusion and difficulties. They're not an ally, though. Like, I can't count on them, and I can't rely on them, and sometimes they'll turn on me.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't know if this is like a tangent, but I also see that a lot in like celebrities. Just because they're a celebrity and also a minority doesn't mean they're representative, doesn't mean they're a good representation, or that they have the same values that would help lift up their communities or be a good ambassador, or not that they should be an ambassador just because they're famous and also minority. It's very complicated.
It is.
Yeah, but just because they're the same race as you, doesn't mean that they have the same core values.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
My parents, my mom specifically, but both of them, they don't tend to always vote in the municipal election, but they were going to. And my mom was saying how she either doesn't vote or she'll just vote for the people of color, which I thought was really interesting. And I responded to her, I was like, I get that. Like, sometimes it can be the safer option, but then I told her how also, though, they can also stand for things that you don't agree with. And so you can't just choose someone that looks like you. Do you remember people in our friend group that would make not so great jokes. And then they would look at me and be like, sorry, Chantel.
That's ringing a bell. Yeah. Did it just block all of those out? What do you remember, like, of those interactions? Because I'm drawing.
I just remember that now, them apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember feeling really complicated about it. Because on one hand, oh my God, the bar is so low. On one hand, it's an acknowledgement that what they're saying is problematic and they shouldn't be saying it. And realizing that they shouldn't be saying that, I guess, in front of me, that I would take issue with it. But then on the other hand, they're still saying it. It doesn't soften the blow. It doesn't make anything better.
No, you're just acknowledging that you will disagree with it.
Yes, which okay, I knew that.
Yeah.
And I think another part of it too was that it contributed to my like self-consciousness around that. Because I don't know if I've been specifically like called an SJW, like a social justice warrior in high school, but I definitely have had people say, well, you can't say that in front of Chantel. Like, Chantel's here. You can't say that in front of her. And I had really mixed feelings about it because I was like, yeah, they shouldn't say that. I don't want to hear it. But also I was like, am I not fun to be around?
Like, do I have to censor myself to be around you? Like, that kind of feeling? So it made you feel like you had to downplay that part of yourself to be around other people?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I did that for a little bit. Or I would still say stuff and I'd still have reactions, but I had to like think about it before I did it. Which sucks because I used to be so vocal as a kid and I didn't think anything of it. So when I had those sorts of experiences on the playground, I'd like turn around and like yell at that kid and be like, why would you say that? And then as I got older in high school, I would still get irritated and say something, but I'd be like, they're gonna remember that, or they're gonna think that I'm annoying to be around, I'm a party pooper, I care too much, I'm too serious, I just can't take a joke.
You're accounting for how they're gonna take it. That's exhausting. Yeah. And how they're going to take is how they're going to remember that conversation. So if they say something and you insufficiently discredit their argument, that's what they're going to take away from this. They're going to discredit that entire point of view because you didn't explain it well enough to them.
Yeah, that's a really big part. Because often, not always, but there are many moments where getting angry at someone, I'm like, why would you say that? What do you mean by that? You know, we get into this whole thing back and forth. And then I either walk away or I start crying. And then when I start crying, then that display of emotion completely invalidates all that I said that before.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm the emotional girl who gets too concerned about things and doesn't know how to let go, instead of someone that's crying because
you're angry.
I'm angry because you're denying like humanity of a group, or because you're saying really harmful things. That's why I'm crying.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's also why I hate talking about those sorts of things. I think that's also why I sometimes don't speak up, because it's not worth me feeling that because it feels so powerless when you're crying because you're so angry about something and they don't get it. And you crying and being very emotional about it because clearly it's an important topic.
Yes.
In their eyes, it invalidates your argument. It makes you seem weak, and I hate it. It makes me so angry, because of course I'm going to be emotional about it. Why shouldn't I be? And instead of focusing on my words rather than my involuntary physiological function that I can't control, you're going to use that against me to say that what I'm saying doesn't matter because I'm too emotional. When you're talking about like the rights of some human rights, when you're talking about the entire people, you're denying their existence, you're denying their rights.
It's so hard because I feel in order to say something, you have to be the most collected, eloquent, and perfect version of yourself. I can't come off too strong. I can't get too emotional. I have to be like a little funny. I have to like let them say a bit of a joke or something. I have to like play the game in order to get them to listen to me. And it's such a delicate balance, and all it does is like take up so much of my energy.
Yeah. Because they won't listen otherwise. There's only a specific circumstance in which they will listen and take in that information if they do. And any step out of line, if you don't have a counter argument, if you don't have all of your points prepared, then in their eyes, they've won that, and that's all they'll take away from that interaction. It sucks because they're not seeing it as a discussion, it's an argument, and they're winning.
Yeah, I think I used to be, despite still getting into those arguments with people pretty much all the time, I was still so conscious about being put into a distasteful box. Because there's so much in that. It's not just about being a good person of color, it's not about being a good person of color, being one that's easy to be around and like gets the joke. It's also being as someone that's like socialized as female, as a woman, about being agreeable. Agreeable, but being obedient and being quiet, and it's like so many things all at once. And I think eventually I got to the point where I was like, I don't care. So what if this person thinks that?
So what if they think I'm not cool? Like, what if maybe I'm not? Maybe in that person's eyes, maybe you're not fun to be around.
Yeah,
that's fine.
And yeah, you know what? I don't care because I want to be around you anyway.
Yeah, you're not fun to be around.
You can think whatever you want of me. Yeah. I think I had to get to that point eventually.
I think I'm still getting there.
Yeah. It's hard. And sometimes you can't do that in all areas of your life. So I was picking fights with people in high school, but that's because I didn't care about that other person, really. Yeah. But I can't do that with a coworker.
No.
So you pick and choose your battles, I think.
You do. It's harder when it's someone you do care about.
Yeah.
It's easier to let things slide when those people don't matter. Like maybe it's a coworker. Maybe you just choose not to be around that coworker too much. Because it's so much effort to get into that with them that it's almost not worth it. But not saying that's not important for them to know, but sometimes they're just not receptive.
I have trouble with that sometimes because I'm always saying how it's so important to talk about things, and we just have to talk about it with each other, and the importance of having those difficult, challenging conversations. But there have been many moments in my life where I close the door on the conversation because I just can't do it.
Yeah, because at some point it's not your burden. Know how to react to it without being a nuisance or being too argumentative or too emotional, or is it worth it to bring it up? How much do I care about this person? How much do I care about this being liked in this group?
For me, the most important part was realizing I wasn't not bringing it up or not responding because of my discomfort, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think I just had to practice being uncomfortable. It's one thing to choose not to say something because I'm like, this person has power over me, this might not be a safe relationship to have this in, or might not be a safe interaction. That's one thing. I think sometimes it's important to denounce it still, or to even just say something like, ooh, I don't think that was really funny. Or something like, what do you mean by that? Like, turn it back on them. I think it's still important to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So I have a question that I've been asking, unintentionally I've been asking to every single person. Some variation of it, which is, if you could give your younger self some advice, something that you think they needed to hear, what would you say?
I think everything that you just said stems from confidence in my thoughts and opinions, in my identity. And I think if I was younger, I think I could really use that. So I think something about, it's kind of weird to say to yourself, just have more confidence, just do it, just have more. But I think it would have been really good for me to have more of that. And maybe I would have grown faster. And yeah, I think it would have really helped my journey if I had more confidence in my own thoughts and opinions and in sharing those.
Yeah.
Because I think I invalidate a lot of myself in that, especially not feeling Asian enough, or my voice belongs in this community. So I think that'd be really helpful. Yeah.
I guess the only thing I want to say is we've known each other for so long. you are my longest friend, I think, because we've known each other since kindergarten.
Oh, you're
technically.
right. Yeah.
So it's been a long run, the two of us. And it's been really important and like meaningful to have you by my side while we go through a lot of similar experiences together and be able to also talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think a lot of the things we shared today were actually shared experiences,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes I'm talking about a story that you were in the room for,
mm-hmm.
and vice versa. Yeah, I actually think it's really special that we get to have that and we get to talk to each other about it.
I really appreciate. I don't think I've ever appreciated it as much as I do right now.
Mm-hmm. And also hearing what you would want to tell to your younger self. I'm like, yes, that was all it took. Like, there's no such thing really as being Chinese enough. Like, what are the parameters? What are the made up rules? What does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like what you shared with that anecdote, but that lunch that you have with that acquaintance, you have those feelings and thoughts inside. You just have to let yourself see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Smash.
I guess I just wanted to round it off by saying, I know you had felt hesitant about being a part of this project or participating, but even in its infancy, when Josh and I did not know what it would look like at all, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted you to be a part of it. So I just wanted to like thank you
I really appreciate
for coming on, even though I know it's hard.
Thank you so much.
Okay, done. Okay. Got me to cry as well, so it's gonna be a great episode.
Great. Let's go.